Well, I got my amp all unboxed and set up on the table, and I put my tubes in and put it back together. You can see it has this nice cage to cover the front tube part. It's removable. Around in the back we'll have three inputs that marked CD, auxiliary, and DVD. They're just regular line level inputs. There's no phono inputs. In other words, this amplifier does not have built-in phono equalization circuitry. So in order to use my old style turntables, I'll have to get a preamp to run between the turntable and the amp that has the correct equalization curve, or else buy a newer turntable that has it built in, which is probably what I'll do. Buy the newer one with the built-in converter. It also has 4 ohm taps for the speakers or 8 ohm taps for the speakers, and the power plug. Other than that, there's nothing else on the back. No fusing. And just a second and I'll remove the tube cover. Okay, I actually like the looks of it better with the tube cover off. It's prettier this way. It has one 12AX7 tube, two 12AT7 tubes, two 6N8P tubes, and 4 KT-88 power output tubes. I'm not sure of the functions of these tubes here. I'm thinking these two may be preamplifier tubes to drive the power amp tubes. And these, I'm thinking, are possibly rectifiers, because there has to be two rectifiers to rectify these AC voltages, or to rectify this AC voltage into DC to store in the caps. So I believe these may be rectifiers. I'm not sure. I think this is a push-pull amp because it's rated at 50 watts per channel, and I don't think you could get that much power out of the KT-88s in a Class A mode. So I think it's push-pull. I've hooked it up and it sounds pretty good. I'm going to hook it to my Roku to play some YouTube stuff, to let you listen to it. But in just a minute, I'll have to shut this off and then hook everything back up, and then I'll get back. Well, I've got the bottom removed from my amp now, so we can see the insides. Point I like to make is, I grew up with solid state amps, transistor amps, and even an amp that's 30 watts per channel will have a lot of components in it, just stuffed full of components. Whereas these tube amps don't seem to have an awful lot of associated circuitry to run the tube amps. This is rated at 55 watts per channel. I was skeptical that it would do it, and it didn't. It does what I expected, about 30 watts RMS before it gets 1% distortion. But as you can see, it doesn't look like a lot of parts, but it looks like all these little tube holders and tube sockets, these parts all look like they're pretty good quality parts. They're not little cheap plasticky things. They're nice solid. These look like a ceramic type of a base, and metal, thick heavy gauge metal bases for them, for the octal tube bases. I see right here we have Phillips capacitors, and down here Phillips capacitor. These two, these other caps, these darker colored ones, I'm not sure what brand they are. They may be a cheaper brand. And then over here on this other board here, there's one printed circuit board in this amp, only one, this small one here. This is right underneath the power supply transformer, and so I'm pretty sure these are storage capacitors to store the juice for the output sections, a little bit buffer, and to kind of filter out noise. I'm not sure what brand these are here, or this one. No, this here, this and this one are both Nichicon capacitors. Those are good quality, and I'm not sure about the rest. But the wiring looks like it's done well, and all the solder joints look good. Sometimes you'll have cold solder joints, but these all look like they were done pretty well. What I find interesting is these little, looks like a little brass rods they have running from here up through here, like a common bus bar, and then they take off here, go over to this tube socket, to the center pin of this tube socket. I'm not sure exactly what it hooks up to, but it kind of reminds me of copper water tubing in a house. It's a little, I've never seen it done that way, but things are done neatly. All these little wires are twisted up real nice and neat together instead of just running all over. These are all done well. Another thing to note when you're messing around inside of a tube amp is watch out where you go putting your fingers, because a tube amp generally has really high voltages off the transformers, and the capacitors will store a considerable amount of voltage, enough to hurt you. So it's a good idea to keep one hand in your pocket when you're tinkering with a tube amp. So I guess that's all we really need to look at down here. The power out supply transformer is right above this and here, and on either side of it we have our two output transformers, but I couldn't get to them. I couldn't get the top off to remove that to see those. But anyway, now that's it for that. We'll get back to set it back up and run a couple of dyno tests. Okay, I've got my meters set up. I'm ready to test my power output. Got my track set ready to go. So pay attention, here we go. Watts, 31 watts at 8 ohms, 1% distortion. That's with the new Electro Harmonix brand tubes I put in. I got them yesterday. So actually it's the same power output at the same distortion as the Shuguang Chinese tubes I had in it before. So there's no any increase in the power output. I wasn't sure whether those Shuguang Chinese tubes were any good or not, so I bought a brand new set of Electro Harmonix. But after watching another YouTube review of someone more knowledgeable than myself, I come to find out that the Shuguang Chinese tubes are actually pretty much on par with the Electro Harmonix and the other ones, except for the premium tubes. Okay, now I'm going to clear this out and I'm going to do a 1 kilohertz test. And this one will probably hurt your ears a little, so I'm going to .65 watts at 15.8 ohms. I'll clear it out and we'll redo it. Okay. Well, that says 17 watts at 16 ohms at the 1% distortion. Well, I guess that's what it is. 16 watts at 17 ohms, though, would be about 32 watts into 8. So I guess actually that's not that bad. Higher frequencies don't demand that much power anyway, so it may not make any difference. Anyway, we'll run this again. Try it one more time. Yep, 17 watts at 15.4. Okay. Well, that's it. Well, I guess I forgot to do the dynamic power measurements. So, we will skip disk, go to disk 2, track 1, reset my meters, okay, now we'll do a dynamic 40 hertz tone. Okay. Okay. And so, my consensus is the cheap Chinese Shuguang tubes, they seem to function just as well in the amp as the Electro Harmonix upgrade tubes I bought. So, in a way, that's good. That way I know that when this set of tubes wears out, I have a new set of tubes ready and waiting to put in and play again. So, that's out of the way. Vintage Stereo Buff out.